Step inside the world of loft living, where open spaces meld with urban flair. On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're venturing into 5 extraordinary loft apartments, each showcasing a unique interpretation of this distinctive architectural style. From a showstopper in Brooklyn, to chic decor in Manhattan, to minimalism in San Francisco, they all beautifully blend form, function, and style. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey, Homeworthy, I'm David. Come on into my Brooklyn home. I'm David Stark. I design and plan events, and you are in my home. I live kind of on the border of what is considered to be Brooklyn Heights and downtown Brooklyn. I always say that when I look one direction on my block, it's Brooklyn Heights, and if I look the other direction, it's downtown Brooklyn. So it depends how I feel at the moment, but it's mostly Brooklyn Heights. I live in an old office building that is, I think, from the Art Deco time period, but in the 80s it converted into an apartment building. And I live on the 11th floor, and I've been living here for about 10 years. We transformed this place from top to bottom, and I love it. So at my namesake company, David Stark Design and Production, we plan events. We plan big corporate events, fundraising events, social events, weddings, birthday parties, coming of age events. We raise money for incredible organizations through our events, whether those are cultural institutions, whether those are poverty fighting institutions, and we get involved in all kinds of corporate events, from retail and fashion to media partners, and it's really exciting. I mean, what's the variation that's involved in what we do at the scale of what we do, and really, frankly, all over the world. You know, we are in New York City, but we're working on a project in Mallorca right now, we're working on a project in Switzerland right now, we're working on a project in Los Angeles, in Palm Beach, Florida. I went to art school a long time ago, and I had great intentions of being a painter and a sculptor, and I went to the Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the entire creative experience. It was hard as all get out. I was incredibly inspired by all of my peers, who remain some of my closest friends today. And I came to New York right after school there to go to graduate school. And frankly, the second I got out of graduate school, I kind of didn't want to be a painter. So I got this master's, and I felt all this guilt about what I was supposed to be doing, but I realized pretty early on that I didn't want to be alone in a studio with a paintbrush. I actually wanted to collaborate with other people. I love all of the objects that we have. Everything has a story. Everything is handmade. Everything comes from an experience that I've had, or that I've had with my husband, Miguel. There are things that he's made that are here. And my dear friend Jane Shulak, who worked hand in hand with me to design the space, and who is also, you know, my partner in crime on creating our new book, At the Artisan's Table. You know, it's very meaningful to me because this is something that we did together. This apartment is, you know, it's really the result of a lot of collaboration. There's another group also that I had a wonderful experience with, which is the architecture firm that I worked with, who is called Made. And they're here in Brooklyn. And the combination of Jane and Made was a truly magical experience. And I would say that so often people, they end an architectural project and they might not feel in love with their architects after spending that much time together or spending as much money as they did or things running late. I happen to adore my architects. I only want to win the lottery so that I can design more spaces with them. Welcome to our little tiny foyer. One of the things that Jane and Made and I talked about was making sure that this little tiny space felt like a jewel box. And also we were pretty conscious of the fact that it would be a high trafficked area, so it needed to be something that was going to be durable, but also something that had like a distinct look as soon as you walked in. These walls are actually upholstered or wallpapered, if you will, with linoleum that's intended for the floor. So one of the things that's really inventive about that Made came up with is the sheer durability of this, because really it's intended to be a floor surface, it's not intended to be a wall surface. What that does do is it gives this otherworldly feeling because it was a material intended for something entirely different. And then when things bump the walls, it's not a problem because there's that durability built right in there. Our little tiny powder room is a little jewel box too. In fact, there's a lot of jewel box going on here because the spaces are tiny in New York. But about 1.5 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago, a pipe burst in the ceiling and messed up the whole bathroom. And so we had to change the wallpaper. We had to change everything. I actually really love the wallpaper now. Maybe even more so than the one that I had loved the first time around. But there's some special things in here. There's this little tiny sink that Made had found for us that came from a ship. And it's very distinctive, and they fused it into a piece of marble so that it sits in the room very beautifully. This shower curtain is also something that I'm in love with. A friend named Gregory Parkinson created it for us. He's out of Los Angeles. He makes incredible things with fabric. He actually did the upholstery that we use to create the slipcovers for the sofa in the living room as well. This is a photograph that's a new acquisition. I've been in love with this collaboration between the photographer Inga Morath and Saul Steinberg for 1 billion years, where Saul Steinberg would draw these faces on paper bags, and then 1 million people in the artistic New York City community would wear them and pose for the photos. It's so exactly up my alley of what I do with my work with materiality and transformation and humor. If I was going to be a photographer and artist and making that kind of work, I would only hope I could make a series as incredible as that. In a powder room, you actually have some excuse to go a little wild with color, right? It's not like this is so wild, but in a house of neutrality, having a little bit of color in here becomes a surprise, right? And so if you're sticking with that idea of every time you open a door, every time you go into a new space, what's that surprise? This was the place where we could go wild. So welcome to the kitchen. This is the heart of the house in a certain way. I had actually thought that the living room would be, but I think like in most homes, the kitchen and the dining area actually become the center of it all. I put a desk into the living room thinking that I would actually use that as a desk, but I really use the kitchen table as a desk. The kitchen's important, obviously, for sustenance, but we also entertain a lot. One of the things that was important for me when I moved to a new place and moved out of my old home was that it was designed for entertaining and that I could have people over often, which is something that we do. The first thing that I picked out for this apartment was the floor. And perhaps that was a bold idea to tile the entire space. Every single room is tiled with the same, I think they call it a harlequin pattern. The only major difference, and this was something that Made came up with, was in door sashes, they would switch the direction of the tile. But I think that one of the things about the tile is that it transports you to a different place. It might be France, it might be Portugal, it might be Morocco. In fact, these are really from Cuba, even though this is not a traditional Cuban design, but this is Cuban cement tile that I actually got from Miami. But it takes you from where you think an apartment in New York City or Brooklyn Heights or downtown Brooklyn is, and it transports you to another place. And that's one of the things that I think is really important about any space, whether that's an event space or whether that's your living space, is that you want to be transported to whatever that place is that you want to be at, right? So for me, that was something that was handmade that could give a completely different take on what an apartment in this building could be like, and B, it just feels special. The sculpture on the floor that looks like it's a weed growing through the crack of the wall is a sculpture by an artist who I'm also a big fan of named Tony Matelli. It is bronze. He is kind of a genius at making things look photographic and absolutely real. And he does have this series of these weeds that grow out of cracks. I just love the surprise of what that does here and the fact that it looks so incredibly real, but it is not. And he does all these kinds of other crazy pieces. He does these like sleepwalkers of humans. He does these sort of upside down arrangements of flowers. Again, they're all made out of bronze, so you know they're very, very sturdy. But there's the optical illusion of something that shouldn't be happening in his work, and that's also something that I'm very attracted to in art making. So this island is something that our friends from Made designed. That is, it's not really a cutting board, although it looks like a cutting board, but it's made from spalted maple, which I don't entirely understand what spalted maple is, but I think it has something to do with the idea that when wood is rotting, they're able to suspend that rot so that they can keep the veins in the wood. It's actually one of my favorite things in the house, and it has some drawers in it. It has some shelves in the back for cookbooks and things like that. But ultimately, I use it to cook on. I use it to put vegetables on. You know, we always have things that we can make dinner with, you know, impromptu. So there's always onions and garlic and potatoes and things like that. But whatever is happening from the farmer's market, which frankly is right outside the door. On the weekends, we've got the best farmer's market here. You know, it kind of all lives on this table until it ends up on the stove or in the oven. I like to make a whole meal that is really coming out of one pot, and rather than lots of different courses. Partially it's because the kitchen's small, but partially it's also because I actually want to spend time with the guests at the table and not be working the entire time that the guests are here. So this is a collection of ceramics that I happen to love very, very much. They're by a bunch of different people, but mostly they're from a friend in Paris named Sylvie Saint-André-Perrin. And she's actually part of our new book, At the Artisan's Table, and she's in a chapter that's about aptware. And what is aptware? It's this incredible marbleized ceramic. Before I really knew what this was, I thought that it was the glaze that was creating this marbleization, but what it actually really is it's different clay bodies that she puts together. And it's a chemical reaction that the glaze is having when it's being fired that creates the marbleization. And I'm really blown away by that work. They're kind of like, they're all like mini paintings on the table, and frankly, I just want to buy them all every time I go to Paris and get different colorways. So a long time ago, I designed some product lines for West Elm as a guest designer. And one of the collections, this guy here, was made as a prototype. It never actually got made into a product for sale, but I kept the prototype. And I kind of love him because he harkens back to that time period. And you know, for me, that's one of the things that's most important, is that every object has a story. Every object elicits a memory. Every object has meaning, and it wasn't like I went out one Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock and bought the whole apartment. So this guy is part of that. I love the relationship between this Picasso artwork. And I have a lot of other things that are meaningful to me. For example, like I have a lot of paper mache items, and a lot of them are made by an artist from Belgium who's also featured in our book. And her name is Isabelle de Bourgegrave. So, you know, this feather or this plate that's here, I love how all of these handmade items work together and how they have a dialogue with each other. The pineapple is probably a sign of hospitality, but frankly, it's just something from the supermarket that I'm going to eat once it ripens. But it is sitting in a bowl that is part of a memory from the West Elm collection a million years ago, and a stack of cutting boards. And, you know, I tend to have a lot of stacks. I move my stacks around, but I like to look at all these objects again and again. I learned about this building because I have very close friends that live here, and for years and years and years, I would come to their house, go to dinner parties. They had a magnificent view, and oddly enough, and as an adult, this is my first home that was not in or above the office or studio that I worked in. And I know that's kind of crazy, but you know, for about 12 years, I lived in a different location in Brooklyn, which my company worked out of. The true story there is that it was originally my painting studio, and when my partner and I decided to do this business, you know, when we needed to hire somebody, we threw away the sofa so that we could put in a desk. And when we needed to hire somebody else, we threw away the chair so we could put in another desk. And little by little, all the things that were a home went out the door, and it became a business. I lived in a little apartment that was on the roof of that building. It was an old garage building. And I was just very used to living above the shop. I rolled downstairs in early morning. On the weekends, it didn't occur to me to separate my life from that building. And at one point in time, we had outgrown the building, and my team, frankly, forced me to move. And in doing so, that would allow us to move the business out of the building and ultimately sell the building. And so I got pushed out of the nest, and I remembered this building from hanging out with my friends, and also being amazed by their views. If I had to live in a very different kind of place than what I was used to living in, I wanted to live in something that was unique. And the views here, I mean, my views of the Statue of Liberty or the Verrazano Bridge, I'm closer to them than they are because they're higher up in the sky. But I was always very dazzled by that this was a different way to live in Brooklyn and a different approach to living. So this is a desk. It's really our dining table, but I use it as a desk a lot of times, and so does my husband, Miguel. Maid designed this table. Jane worked with Maid. Jane found this incredible stone, I think at a stone yard in New Jersey. You know, one of the things that I like about our world here is how all of these different natural materials talk to each other. So how this stone talks to the floor, how this marble talks to Sylvie's Aptware marble bowl. This is a glass wall that was one of the inspirations. I mean, when I first met with Maid, I gave them a whole folder filled with steel and glass walls. And one way or the other, I was gonna have a steel and glass wall. So they gave me a steel and glass wall. And you know, the light that comes in through it is really quite beautiful. But there's also a mystery that comes with it. There's like a layering process. And I think that part of the thing about New York apartments that can be a little bit of a downer is that, you know, you can walk in and you can see the whole thing immediately. And I feel like this about our events. I feel like it about the most wonderful spaces in the world is that they reveal themselves over time, and that you don't see the whole thing immediately. And that's part of the joy and the magic, is that you find new details. You have different layers. That's one of the things about also not buying everything at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at one store to furnish your home. I mean, when you bring them from your travels, from different artisans over the course of a long period of time, you create these layers of meaning in the space. And you know, that's something that I feel like we do have here. It's not something that I try for, frankly. It's something that I'm naturally drawn to doing. But I think, you know, when I think about the glass wall and I think about the different kinds of materialities here, they're very much part of an overarching strategy of how I think about design and how I think about spaces. The marble is extraordinary. Jane found it, she went to many, many, many different stone yards. I believe she found it in New Jersey. I frankly don't know what it's called. We see a certain amount of marble in commercial spaces, and you know, it's beautiful. It's not beautiful. It's like a beautiful natural material. But when you start to see the same kinds again and again, it loses its uniqueness. So we were looking for something that kind of spoke to the gray color story and also gave a little bit of a glint of color and a little bit of something different. And this actually, you know, really spoke to us. We contemplated a lot about what this oval is. You know, there's a lot of different ways to make an oval, and cut out different ovals that we would experiment with to see what felt right here. We can seat 9 people. 9 people is a little bit of a funny number for a dinner party, but it actually works out beautifully because there's always somebody who is not coming with somebody else. I've tried to get 10 people around this table, but we can really get 9 people around the table. With the glass and steel wall, you know, it reveals the light. I mean, that's one of the best things about it. But, you know, you might say also, do you want people to see into your bedroom? I don't mind that, frankly. But, you know, we have a curtain here. And so at night, if we do have people over and we want there to be a little bit more mystery, you know, we draw the curtain. What's nice also is like you can light candles in the bedroom, you could put on soft lights, and then you get like a layered effect of the flickering of that light. That's a really nice thing. So art is very important to me in general and in this house. This is a piece by an artist from Detroit named Scott Hocking. I was introduced to him by Jane. Jane lives in the Detroit area. And Detroit is filled with abandoned factories. And what Scott did is he went into an abandoned factory and he created these installations, again, ephemeral. They were not really for anybody to see because nobody was supposed to be going into the factory. So he, as a renegade, went in there, took the detritus of the space and, you know, created, in this case, this pyramid and then photographed it. I absolutely love it. Not only do I love the image, but I love the spirit, which kind of reminds me a lot of what I do for events, where you go in and you make something that is not meant to last forever. And by the nature of its photograph or who was able to interact with it for the short amount of time that they were, that it happened, that it was a happening, and that it was something that registers and clocks in your brain as a moment in time. This whole series is really, really magical. If I had more room to have more of it, I would, but it's a piece I'm very, very fond of. So this is the living room. This is a space that has the most light. Sometimes it's blinding. Sometimes it's actually incredibly beautiful at sunset time. It's the space that has the best views of all of the rooms in the house. It's also the space that's filled with a lot of objects that have personal meaning to me. Many of them have been made by my husband, Miguel Angelo. He's got a wacky sense of materiality. So I'll show you some of the pieces. He made this table here. It's made out of something like 27,000 matches. He meticulously hand glued each match to this table structure, which is a maddening experience, I would imagine. He created these 2 chairs that are on either side of this credenza. They are garden chairs, but he wrapped them with baker's string, and you know, they're almost like these hairy rugs of chairs. and they're really cool. And I love this table. It's something that Jane turned me on to that we found in Paris together at a shop called Prince Jardinet. And it's made out of tools. I mean, the four legs are literal shovels and spades, and it's actually one of my favorite things in this house. This group over here is something that I made years ago. I had a pop-up store in New York City. It was called Wood Shop, and it was things that were either made out of wood or they were inspired by the woodworker's atelier. This, I think, is probably one of the best items that came from that. It was inspired by the classic chocolate Valentine's box. When you open it up, there's different samples of different wood types. So instead of chocolates, it's all different kinds of wood. And you could see on here oak, black palm, poplar, purple heart, cherry. This was the most popular item in the store. We couldn't keep it on the shelves. This is the only one left. So this pencil was made by Miguel as well. This was a birthday gift. He surprises me a lot with birthday gifts that he's made. They get bigger and bigger all the time, and the house gets smaller and smaller, but this is one that lives here. And I love this piece a lot. He found some wooden something on the street, and then he covered it with thousands and thousands of thumbtacks. So these bookshelves are something that they're actually a little tricky. They open up. And behind these bookshelves is where we have a television and where the computer printer is and the stuff that we don't want to look at. It's a little bit of a production. I had thought that it would be an easier experience. It's something that we've really labored over, but it was really important to me to not walk into this room and look at a television. And generally, I never turn a television on, and I don't want to look at it as a piece of artwork on the wall. And so the folks from Made were really wonderful to humor me by finding a way to hide it behind this bookshelf. This opens up. It slides to the left and to the right. I do have to take the mirrors down. I do have to take the chairs away. I mean, it's a process, but, and truth be told, it lives open much more than it lives closed, because somebody in this house wants to watch television all the time. But the truth is it does close up, and so if we are having a party or I don't want to look at it, I can close it all up and it looks clean and neat. So this is a labor of love. This is the book that Jane Shulak and I created. And we've worked on it for about 5 years. It just came out. It's a tabletop book, but it's not really a tabletop book. It's an exploration of the value of handmade elements in our lives. It's something that obviously I've talked a lot about today in how that relates to my personal life, but it's something that I think is really important in my professional life as well. I know that Jane shares the same ideals and the same love for a lot of the same kind of work. It's really how she and I became such fast friends anyway. But we've partnered with a bunch of different museums, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the V&A in London, the Museum of Decorative Arts in Paris, and we shot items from their collections. And then we found whoever was the contemporary artisan, who was the contemporary expression of the work that we found in the museum. The easiest way, I think, to understand it is, I think about blue and white Delft, and a lot of people think that Ralph Lauren invented blue and white Delft, but we know that he didn't, and that it came from somewhere a long time ago, from a far-off land, and it was a style that was co-opted and explored by others over the years. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. That means that it had some kind of lasting influence on people. But we wanted to really get to the root of where did these things come from. Like this is a favorite one that was created in Detroit that was in reaction to this Diego Rivera mural, where we created this candle structure out of plumbing pipe. And this would be kind of emblematic of some of the event work that I do, where I take a material that was probably meant for some other purpose and that also maybe not considered chic, and then I do something with it that makes it chic and that you look at it in a different way. So Miguel, God bless him, rescues plants from the street. So this agave is a rescue. It's grown about 3 times the size as it was then when he brought it home. And this guy is also very happy here. He was a rescue. This was not a rescue. This was a purchase. I live in fear of what he's going to bring home, but we make it work. I bought these heads in a shop in Santa Fe. I love the way they look, but I also love the story behind them. They were made by a gentleman from Oaxaca, Mexico, who's blind, and he feels the features. That's how he differentiates the forms and the shapes by feeling the features of his of the person he's making the portrait of. The clouds are made by an artist from Italy. I frankly don't remember the artist's name, but I do love them. We put them up lots of times and tried to figure out the exact perfect spot, and the thing about a cloud, it moves. So I've had to get used to the idea that I can't hold it in the exact position I always want it to be in, and that I have to be open to the idea that it's going to move around, which I suppose is a reflection of life. So I think the thing that's really interesting about our home here is that I think that people anticipate that my living space would be brash and loud and theatrical in the way that my events are. And I think that I actually live quite differently than that at home. It's actually quiet, it's contemplative. It's perhaps the exact opposite of what the events are. Now, I suppose I take pride in that I think our events are elevated and that there's a fine design hand and the craftsmanship is top, and we take all of that very seriously. But I think at the end of the day, my living space wants to be a calm respite from all of the craziness that the events are and the hecticness of what my world really is. And so in conceiving of this space, it was important to find a way to design it so that when I came home, there was that calm release that happens that's sort of a relief, right? And New York City, the energy of that, the energy of these events, the energy of all of the travel, that's a lot to contend with. So when I did come home, I wanted to feel calm when I walked in the door. I love so many things about this home. I love the light. There's tons of it. Sometimes it's blinding. I love the sunsets. They're really magical over the West Side and over the Statue of Liberty. I love all of the objects that we have. Everything has a story. Everything is handmade. Everything comes from an experience that I've had or that I've had with my husband, Miguel. There are things that he's made that are here. And my dear friend, Jane Shulak, who worked hand in hand with me to design the space, and who is also, you know, my partner in crime on creating our new book, At the Artisan's Table. You know, it's very meaningful to me because this is something that we did together. And she opened my doors to a lot of things from a design standpoint and a lot of resources that I might not have been open to if I was left to my own devices. People often ask me, why did you have somebody help you design your apartment when you could have done that yourself? And I didn't even have to hesitate about that. I wanted to be pushed out of my comfort zone, and I need to be challenged and have my eyes open to other things as well. This is our bedroom. And there's actually a lot of things in this room that have a lot of meaning to me. This chair, my great-grandparents, they owned a hotel in the Catskill Mountains in New York. If you've seen Dirty Dancing, it was that kind of hotel. And when I was a young kid, the hotel burnt down. And one of the only remaining items from the hotel was this chair. And so I have that, and it makes me think of the many times that I went to go see the property. As a kid, I loved to explore the ruins of the place and the overgrown pool and all that stuff. But the chair has been transformed. It didn't look like this. I mean, this decorative painting of the back and the upholstery, that's a whole different thing of today than what they had at that time. But I do love it, and I love the memories that it evokes. This piece of furniture was designed by a friend in Paris. It's paper mache. And I love the idea that this trim work detail is made out of paper mache. Again, factoring towards that whole idea of using a material that wasn't supposed to be used in a certain way and using it in a way that's unexpected, and then ultimately transforming the object. I like a little humor in everything, so the fact that there's a hair of humor underneath that, like why would you ever make it out of paper mache, is something that is fun to me. The name of his company is called Farfallis Farfadet. I never want to see a television, as we've already established, so this is a piece that a friend named Corey Hogue made for me that is made out of painter's canvas. She gessoed it and sewed it as a slipcover to go right over the television, and it's the perfect chic solution for never looking at your television. I actually like it as a piece of art on its own, but because we have so few walls to put artwork on, and we actually never watch this television, I'm contemplating taking it down so we have more places to put art. This is Panchito. Panchito is a doll that a person that lived on the block that Miguel grew up in Venezuela made. Panchito actually travels all over the world with us, sometimes to my horror, not realizing he went on the trip. And then out he comes for photographs, whether that's in Athens or whether that's at the Eiffel Tower. Panchito has been to more places than most people have ever gone. And I love Panchito, and I wish there were more characters, but this person is no longer alive that made these, but this is kind of a special thing. This is actually, it's something that the artist refers to as a surprise ball, and it is sold, there's a wonderful store in Oakland, California called The Tale of the Yak. And there is an artist who makes these surprise balls. And there's candy, and there's other little gifts in here. You would never rip this apart because it's such a beautiful thing. And she makes vegetables, and she makes other kinds of flowers, and she makes fruits. And actually the pomegranate that's over on that dresser is also made by her. You know, it's something that I've loved for a long time. The word home is important to me. Especially, you know, the event work that I do is temporary. It's something that is ephemeral. These events last for 6 hours. Maybe they last a day, maybe they last for 2 hours. So they're ephemeral. The memory is oftentimes the thing that you hold on to. And so a grounded space that is a place that is permanent, and that is filled with love, and that has things in it that are from your travels, from your journeys that you've made, that other people have made for you, that are unique, and that feel safe. That is what home means to me, and I do feel like I have that here.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Raymond. Welcome to my New York loft. Come on in. Hi, I'm Raymond Boozer of Apartment 48 Interiors. Apartment 48 is a design firm here in New York City, and we're here in my one-bedroom loft/office in NoHo. I went to school for interior design in Indiana. I grew up in Indiana. I was actually born in Alabama, but I grew up in Indiana, and I studied interior design. And then I moved to New York like years and years ago and thought, I'd work in design or fashion or something, and I opened a store. I had a home furnishing store called Apartment 48 for 18 years, which I loved for a long time, but then I kind of outgrew it. When my apartment was on the cover of Elle Decor in like 2007, people started asking me to decorate their homes, and it became like a thing. So I just evolved into an interior designer overnight. We're in my foyer, and I want to show you my front door. I just pin up things of cards that people give me, things that come in the mail. A lot of them are art shows, things from my friends who are artists. My business manager is really great at choosing cards. He's really great at writing cards, and most of these are from her. But I have things from like all over. I voted, stuff like that, stickers. And over the years, I just pen everything up on the door. People don't really see it until they leave though, because most people don't look back. So people come in and then they're like here for a whole, dinner or a party. This place is great for parties, by the way. And when they're leaving, they're like, oh wow, you have all this stuff on your door. And I'm like, yeah, it's always been there. I have this great photograph. It's actually from Ralph Lauren. I got it for Christmas like 20 years ago. And I had it framed. It was my favorite photograph for a long time. And I put it here because I like seeing it, and you see it from like everywhere in the apartment. These walls are pretty cool. It's fabric. It's a wall covering by a company called Lattice. And I just thought I wanted to do something really dramatic and like kind of dark, which is kind of counterintuitive because this is the darkest part of the apartment, but I just thought I'd lean into it and wrap the walls in this, like, it's like purple and brown, like kind of like shimmery silk. And the whole kitchen is like that, which you didn't expect the kitchen, because it bleeds into, it's just, this apartment's just like one space. So the kitchen bleeds from the foyer into like the kitchen, into the living room, into the dining room. I also want to show you a painting by Jerry Gonzalez. It's like really beautiful. He's an artist I discovered who went to Pratt, and he is really good at this photorealism thing. It's just like scarves piled up. And I love collage, so this really spoke to me. It was like the first real art I ever bought. When I was small, when I was younger, I didn't know that interior design was a career. I always loved interiors, and I used to subscribe to interior design magazines like House Beautiful, and I would look at all the floor plans and study them. But I didn't know that people did it for a living. When I got to college and I had to choose what I wanted to do, I thought I was going to be a psychiatrist because I was always interested in psychology and like self-improvement. But once I learned that there was an interior design department, I was fascinated by it, and I took some classes as an elective. And I was really good at it for some reason. It just clicked. And I knew it was going to be my future. Right over here is my bedroom. We're going to visit that later, but let's check out the kitchen because we're already in it. This is my kitchen. It's pretty small, but I think it does a job. I mean, I really don't cook a lot. I'm a really good cook, but I don't like to mess it up because this is also our office, so I don't really like cleaning up, so I don't mess it up. I think of the kitchen as more like a place where you go to get a drink of water or to go to make like coffee. I don't really cook. I cook Thanksgiving like every year for my friends, but that's like the one big meal. I said before, this apartment was like one big space, and I thought it'd be nice to have some kind of island. So I found this like Restoration Hardware like butcher block thing, and I put it in the center, and then I had a light put here. The light used to be here, but I had the electrician move it to the center and trying to create like a hallway to walk into the living room, and the kitchen feels a little bit more separate. Because before, this whole thing was just like kitchen, it was just blank space. It's interesting when you're in a loft, you have to kind of define the spaces. And there are a lot of pipes and things in the ceiling. There's a 10 ceiling. And what I decided to do is to try to make some of the pipes disappear and accentuate others. So I have some of the pipes are painted white to disappear, and some of the pipes are painted gray because I thought they sort of like are noticeable and you can't like really disregard them. It's kind of like a process of deciding what you want to show and what you want to hide. My kitchen's pretty simple. I mean, it's like white cabinets, beautiful countertop, which I love. So I'm super happy with this Italian marble. But I keep all the stuff from my past life above the kitchen cabinets. This is kind of like represents like what my store was like and things I had in the past. It doesn't necessarily represent me now, but I use it a lot for reference in my work. To do a lot of things. We just did a thing recently for Serena and Lily where we did a room which was very rustic and like homey, and that's a vibe that I'm kind of known for, but I feel like it's who I used to be, you know, but I can't let go of it. So I have all this stuff up here that doesn't really relate to anything else in the apartment. You know, I love stuff. I mean, it should be obvious once you see everything that I have that it's hard for me to let go of things, and I'm always acquiring new things. I love collecting vases, boxes, glassware, planters. I have so many planters. It's just like, yeah, more is more for me. I think that since I was small, I've always loved fashion. Fashion has been a big thing for me in my life, and I've always been attracted to color. So the fashion like influences really influenced my interior design work. I grew up like learning about fashion first, and then I learned that interior design was a business, and then I realized that there was a lot of different things, a lot of different styles, a lot of different people doing different things. And at some point when I had my store, a magazine said, "Hey, do you know about color?" And I was like, "Hey, yeah, I do." But you know, I didn't really know about color, but I learned about it. And they kind of dubbed me as a color guru. I experimented a lot with bright colors in my shop, and people seemed to like it, and I became like a thing for me, and now people really come to me for color. This is a great apartment for parties, so I have a really cool like space set up for a bar. I have like 9 different kinds of tequila. I drink a lot of tequila because I'm diabetic. I think it's healthier, you know, as far as drinking goes. But we do entertain a lot. Like at least before the pandemic, I entertain a lot. I have a lot of parties, usually like 100 people in this space. And I think the space looks best when it's filled with people, actually. I also want to show you this painting by a kid I used to babysit for. I mean, he's a grown up now, but he was a kid when I babysat for him. His name is Justin Robinson, and he did this painting for me like 10 years ago. And now he just did his first show last year. He's really become a big artist, and I'm very proud of him. There's actually a picture of him here. Justin, when he was like 3 years old, and now he's like 32, and he's a fancy artist. He's really, really talented. I love abstract art. And when I heard that he was an artist, I talked to his parents and I was like, I need to see his work, you know. And it turned out that, you know, I love one of the things and I have it. Another thing I've had for a long time is this bust of Caesar. It's actually from my old store. Like, I don't know why, but nobody ever bought it. So I've had it in my apartment for like 15 years and it goes with me everywhere. Last year, it was in the Hamptons at a show house. You know, it makes the rounds. It's plaster. I also love this little John Darien plate. I'm a big John Darien fan, so I have a lot of John Darien. You'll notice as we walk through. So I have a lot of art in this space. I love this painting by Audrey Stone. One day I went to Brooklyn, to Bushwick, to all the galleries, and I discovered this gallery that had these really cool paintings. I love anything that's like a rainbow, and I had to buy something. So I bought this Audrey Stone. This poster I got at MoMA. I'm a big fan of Yoko Ono, and you know, in the 60s, she and John Lennon had that like bed-in where they were like protesting the Vietnam War, and I was like, I have to buy this, and I had it framed. Like, war is over. It's kind of like my vibe, really. Like anything 60s and 70s, I'm obsessed with. This apartment was one huge space, and we needed an office, so we created this box. They call it the hot box because it gets really hot in here. But we built these partitions because legally you can build a wall, but you can't go to the ceiling unless you get a permit. So we built this partition, we built a little box, and I put a window in so that the employees could see out and still get light from the windows in the living room. Let's go check it out. I was looking for some place to move, and I really decided I was going to live in a loft. And when I first saw this apartment, it was a big white box. It was just like one big room, and everything was white. And I just thought, this is a lot of square footage. We could do things. You know, we built walls, we created rooms, I changed the colors, you know, I painted the brick. We just made it more of like me, more color. Color is something I'm known for, so there had to be a lot of color. I did a custom millwork bookcase, and I decided to do like a bright blue color because we do a lot of millwork for clients, but it's usually white. But then I thought I'll experiment, it's my own home, and I'll do like a bright blue, and it's become like this like iconic thing. My home is a loft. I never thought I'd live in a loft, but I love it now. I needed a space where we can live and work, and I'd done a lot of lofts for other people. I'd done lofts in Tribeca and Flatiron, and I thought maybe I want to try loft living. It's very open plan. You can build out spaces, and we had space for an office here. But I'd say my style is kind of bohemian, but at the same time, a little bit controlled. So now we're in our office, and there's a lot of stuff here. My biggest favorite thing in here is the inspiration pen board, which I used to use for projects, but really now it's just more like anything that inspires me. There's some stuff that's project stuff. There's show houses that we've done. I save basically everything. I mean, I'm not a hoarder, but it's hard for me to let go of things. I sort of collect postcards, so there are tons of postcards mixed in. There's collection of fabric I did with S. Harris. We did this with the BAD Guild, which is the Black Artists and Designers Guild. We designed a line of fabrics, so a lot of these fabrics and wall coverings and trim and things are from that collection. It's called Origin, so I'm really proud of that. Oh, I love this lampshade. It's by Susie Bellamy. We love like London. Well, I should say I love London, so I make everybody else love it too. So we get a lot of things from London, and one of the things is fabrics from Susie Bellamy. She makes lampshades. She does upholstery fabrics and stuff. We try to use her stuff a lot because it's really colorful. This is a window. It's vintage. I bought it at Good Old Things, and we had the contractor build a box and like put it in to give us some light in this room. There's really cool things. I got this in Amsterdam, and this is by an artist named Jim Sperber. He just like throws paint, and I love that sort of like Pollocky kind of vibe. There's a lot of pencils. I love colored pencils, so you're gonna see a lot of colored pencils here. I have never met a color pencil I didn't like. This is a great resource. The company that makes this is a company called 20 by 200, where you can just buy art online and then you frame it yourself. So it wasn't very expensive, and I think it's really cool because it feels like it's a picture of a tiger, but it's actually a picture of a bunch of rugs hanging on a clothesline. It's one of my favorite things. Here's a sketch of me and Kevin done by Dina First. She's a caricature artist. When we first posted this on Instagram, people thought we were married. Kevin is the project manager. He works with me. He's been here for like 10 years. He's in the dining room working right now. You might see him later. This Air France poster I bought on one of my trips to Morocco, like years and years ago. It was only $2, and I was like, I'll buy two. I bought two because I thought one was going to be damaged, but then I rolled them up together, and I was right. The one on the outside got damaged, but this one I got framed, and I've had it hanging here for years. It's one of my favorite things. I've always loved these like Air France, like airline, like ads, and I thought I'd get more of them, but I never did. I just have this one. This is a poster that we created for Housing Works. We do this charity called Design on a Dime every year, and every year we create like a image to thank all the people who donated, because it's a charity event, and we listed all the people that gave to us, and we did like a surfer vibe. It was a lot of fun. Housing Works is a really good charity. So I'm inspired by travel. I travel a lot. I go a lot to Paris. It's one of my favorite places, so it's probably my biggest inspiration, but I've traveled to Morocco and to Italy, Amalfi Coast, Spain. I've been like all over Spain. So I think my travels are my biggest inspirations. And before I could travel, when I was younger, it was movies. I was always inspired by movies, and movies still inspire me. Now I'm going to show you the main space. It's kind of divided into 3 sections, and this area I call the lounge. This is where I start my day in the morning and I have my coffee. And there's some really cool art pieces that I love. Like this piece is by Naruki Kukita. He's a friend of mine, and he gave me this for my birthday, and now he's a really famous artist. It seems like I know a lot of people that became famous. You think I would be doing better. But, this is one of my favorites. This is by Luke Smalley. He's known for photography of like men, and I got this at Clamp Art. I actually have a couple other Luke Smalley things I'll show you in the bedroom. I'm obsessed with him. His photography is always like so crisp and clear, and it definitely, you know, creates a mood. This one is Jack Pearson, which this interesting story. John Derry and I have been friends for like 20 years, and he had this in his office. I was there for a party, and I said, can I have that? And he said, I can't give it to you because it's a gift. So 20 years later, I was in P-Town and I saw this for sale in a gallery, and I was like, I want that. I didn't even ask the price. I had no idea how much it cost. It was not cheap. But I got it. I finally got it, and I had it framed, and now I have a Jack Pearson. This I got at Housing Works, really cheap. Housing Works is like amazing. These two paintings were like a set for like $45, and I was like, this looks like real art. It is real art. And so it's like one of my favorites now. This couch is my favorite place in the apartment. This couch I've had for years and years. It's been upholstered 3 times now. This is a Romo fabric that I put on it. Everybody thought it was crazy, but it's turned out to be the best place to be. I mean, it's really sloppy, but it's like the most comfortable couch. I sleep here sometimes, you know, like naps. I don't sleep here, but it's my favorite place. It's where I start my day. Like I said, it's where people hang out. We have cocktails when there's just a couple of us sitting here just talking, because it feels like a separate room from the rest of the room, even though everything else is all one room. These coffee tables were from Post Poden from Amsterdam. When I had a store, I bought a lot from this company. It's a really great resource for like really modern things, and I love this vibe of doing like different colors. This rug is Rug Company. Rug Company is like my favorite place to go for rugs. So I'm a little bit obsessed with them. We did a show house in the Hamptons like 2017, and we used this tiger rug, smaller version in the closet, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I said I have to buy this rug, and I got one for myself, so I'm really happy about that. Now let's go to the dining room, which is actually just right here, next to the sofa. And this is actually where I entertain, but it's also where I work. So I like to spread out fabrics and samples and stuff. So it's a big table. It seats 10 people. I have 10 chairs. I love these chairs too. They're covered in this Tebow fabric. It's like ECAT. I never met an ECAT I didn't like. So you're gonna see a lot of ECAT in this house. So I work here, like I said, and on this table is more colored pencils. As I told you, you're gonna see a lot of colored pencils, samples. We're working on a project in Chicago now. We're redoing a living room and building a bar. And so I have the whole color palette laid out here. Boxes, I kind of collect boxes. So there's stuff in all these boxes, business cards and like note cards and notes and pads and stuff. I like to always have some kind of big flower arrangement because I feel this table's really big when it's empty, and I think it looks better when there's something tall, vertical going up, because this is so horizontal. So these are actually fake from Crate and Barrel, but I mixed in some real stuff so it looks more organic. I think it's important, like interiors, to have something organic in like every room. So you always see me like throwing dead sticks around and things like that, because I think it just adds something. Or like real flowers, you know, like orchids I love because they last for a long time. I think that I think this is a really good example of like how I live and like what inspires me. So I like to have all those things around me. A lot of the things that I have on this table are gifts from people. People give me things, and I like to keep them out. I'm not the kind of person who like re-gifts or gives things away. I keep everything in a drawer if I don't like it. But you know, if I like it, you'll see it on display. This chandelier I got at a flea market, like, God, 15 years ago. And it was like totally just like the frame. It had to get rewired. There were no crystals. So I paid like $150 for the chandelier, and I paid the guy $150 to rewire it. And then I got all these crystals. Actually, my sister helped me. She found these at Lowe's and shipped them to me. And they're all random, different things. Some of them are vintage, actually, because she goes to flea markets too. So these are vintage. They're like maybe 5 vintage ones, and most of these new ones are from Lowe's. And this is a little ornament from John Darien. Like I said, I'm a big fan of John Darien. It's one of my favorite things. Okay, now let's go to the living room. Now we're in the living room. This is my new favorite thing. It's my Porta Romana lamp. I love Porta Romana. Their stuff is beautiful. We did a show house in London last summer, and we used all Porta Romana lamps, and I was obsessed with them. I designed these bookcases for this apartment when I moved in. I decided to try to maximize the space, so I had the millworker make these extra boxes and then put them up top. And I think when I was planning it, I hadn't lived here yet. I didn't know this pipe was here. So when they came with all the stuff, they didn't know how to like put it together. So they had to like slide them from the other room across to fit it all together. So I guess I'm never moving because I don't know how I would get it out. But this bookcase is definitely very me. It's my favorite color. It's called Old Blue Eyes from Benjamin Moore, and it holds pretty much everything that I own. Like lots and lots of design books. I love interior design, so I buy every book from all my friends. Magazines, of course. Here's a picture of me. That's from when I was younger and I went to Spain. It was actually, I think that was my first trip abroad. I was young and skinny, really skinny, God. More books. I'm obsessed with Lee Raswell, so I have a couple of Lee Raswell books. This is like my favorite gift ever. Kevin got me this for my birthday last year, a bobblehead of me. And I opened it and I was like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever had a better gift. It was just hilarious. It's probably my favorite thing. I know I say that a lot. This is also one of my favorite things. This vase, it's Italian from the 60s. I got it at Michel Varian. We used it for a show house. It was really expensive, but I wasn't able to sell it, so it's living here now. And this bust I got at Monger's Market in Connecticut. I love thrift shops and flea markets, but Monger's Market is like a giant. It's like a giant flea market. There's so many cool things and vendors and stuff, so it's a great resource for me. Okay, coffee table 101, you can never have too much stuff. I don't like a coffee table that's really empty, so this is piled up books and flowers and plants. More dead sticks, like I said. Never met a dead stick I didn't like. This vase by Melanie Barlat is one of my favorite. Melanie is the founder of the Black Artists and Designers Guild, and she is a sculptor, and she made this vase, and she was willing to sell it to me, so I was super happy to get one. This I got in France. It's La Toula Loupe, like handmade pottery. I'm obsessed with it. There's just like a lot of stuff, but I think you need a lot of stuff. It kind of like, I think the coffee table is a place where you can really show people who you are. You know, people sit here waiting for you to make their drink, and they can like look and see, you know, how your mind works. You don't have to talk to them. I think when I moved here, I knew that I wasn't going to move for a long time, because I've moved 13 times since I've lived in New York, and even though this place is a rental, I thought I'm going to stay here for a long time, and I learned from past experience, you should just do what you want, because it's not going to matter in the end. Like, you think you're going to be someplace for a couple years, you wind up being there for like 8 years now. I'm probably going to be here forever. You know, they're going to have to drag me out of here. So I just did everything I wanted, and you know, I was told by the broker I could do whatever I wanted, so I did that. What I love most about my home is the location. I love this neighborhood. NoHo is like heaven. It's like the perfect like link between the East Village and the West Village in Soho. I remember when I was younger, I used to live in the East Village, and one day I was walking to Soho and I walked down this street, and I just stopped like right outside, because I live right where Bleecker and Elizabeth meet, and I said this would be a great place to live. And like 20 years later, I'm living here. It's kind of interesting that I guess I manifested it. Now let's go to the bedroom. This is my bedroom. For me, this space was really important because we work here. So it's like an office, so this is the only space that's really private that really belongs to me. and I wanted it to represent who I really am. So there's lots of black and white photography. I love photography. There's lots of little things that people have given me, lots of fragrances, lots of fashion references because I love fashion. Here's another photograph by Luke Smalley, and this I got in P-Town like years ago. It's by an artist named Jeff Lee. He does these like letter things, and I think it's sweet, but at the same time it's kind of poetic, you know. My favorite cologne is Loewe. This Loewe 01, which I've been wearing for years. I got it at Barney's like years ago. I really miss Barney's because that was the place to go on Sundays. It's my favorite, but they're all my favorites when you think about it. I mean, I love Tom Ford. I have tons of Tom Ford. I'm always experimenting. And Bottega. But I also love this Creed. This is the one that gets the most compliments. People love this fragrance. It's called Adventus. Anytime I wear it, like I always wear it when I go to the D&D or go shopping for anything. People are like, wow, you smell really good. And I'm, thank you, you know, but like it's expensive, so I don't use it all the time. It's just for savoring. This bus is from my store too. Another thing that we sold most of them, but not all. These little bunny ears are from a Kips Bay party. It was a tribute to Bonnie Williams. And so I saved them because we all wore bunny ears. It was really cute. There's like a fun picture of me and Pamela Giacarino wearing bunny ears. I like to have memories of things that happened that made me feel good. And every time when I wake up and I see these, it reminds me of that night. We had so much fun. It was like so fun. It's just like a lot of stuff. This photograph I love. I got this in Paris. It's these women in Madagascar. It's one of my favorites. It's just like kind of like poetic and sad, but I love it. I love fashion references. You know, I love, you know, vintage things. I've never been to Madagascar, but I want to go one day for sure. So I'm obsessed with these curtains. I love it. It's the S. Harris fabric. And I've always loved this kind of like Japanese like reference. I studied it in college. I studied scrolls, Genji scroll, like a whole semester. And so when I saw this fabric, I was like, it's perfect for me. So I have a whole wall of it now in my bedroom. There's lots of really cool things like photographs. Housing works again. It costs $1. So, you know, I'm thrifty. Then sometimes I'm extravagant. This is a Thomas McBride. And then there's a Wolfgang Tillman. Now here's my closet. It's tiny, but it has everything that I love. It's actually my favorite place in the room. I know I use the word favorite a lot, but it's my favorite place in the apartment, I should say. I have lots and lots and lots of shirts. I have lots and lots and lots of bags. Lots and lots and lots of stuff. Like you can never have too many bags, belts, or shirts. I'll show you some of my favorites. This, I think, is my favorite shirt. Margiela. It's kind of like a cowboy vibe, which I got at Barney's. On sale, of course. One thing I do is I do wait for sales to happen if I can. If I have to have something, then I'll buy it. This Prada shirt is custom. I have a lot of Prada. It's like my favorite. I have all these boxes. Like every time you make a custom shirt at Prada, they give you like a box and it has like a little window so you can see the shirt. Of course, I never put them back in there, but I save the boxes. This Etro shirt, love Etro. This is Etro too. Obsessed with it. One more. Peter Ackerman. It's my favorite designer. This shirt I had shipped from Beverly Hills because I just had to have it. I have a Calvin Klein shirt from that one moment when Rafe Simmons did Calvin Klein. And I think it's really cool. It's wool. And I was like, I'm going to go to Calvin Klein and buy a shirt. And I did. And it's solid, but it's 2 colors. And I have a black leather shirt, but I think it's just black leather. Club Monaco. It was also on sale. When I was young, I wrote a list of things I wanted to happen, you know, when I got older. And one of the things was to own a Birkin. And recently I found that list in a box and I'd forgotten I'd even written it, but I already have this. I actually have 2. Oh, well, technically this is a Kelly bag, but it's funny, like the things like you dream about and then they happen. Home is a place that you go to when you want to get away from everybody else. But for me, home is a place where you can be yourself. Home is a place where you don't have to answer to anybody, you don't have to ask permission for anything. It's a place that should feel safe, it should feel secure, but it also should be a place that rises up to meet you. It should be always uplifting you. I always want like my spaces to feel like me. And hopefully that's optimistic and uplifting. You know, that's basically what my aesthetic is, so hopefully that translates.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Eric. This is my San Francisco loft apartment. Come on in, I'd love to show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
I am Eric Wang. I am now a full-time content creator on Instagram, TikTok, and recently YouTube. But just 6 months ago, I used to be a consultant at Bain & Company, which is a consulting firm in San Francisco. So we are in my San Francisco loft apartment. This is around a 1,400 square foot apartment with very tall windows, which is what attracted to me in the first place. I'd say my home is sort of my comfort area. When I first moved here, I wanted to create a space that made me feel very zen and very cozy and just very relaxed, especially because I used to work in consulting. I was working like 60 hours a week, and so whenever I came home, I always wanted to come home to a space that just made me feel very at peace. So I graduated from UC Berkeley in the May 2022, and so when I was looking for housing, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I actually wasn't even into interior design or like architecture that much before, but surprisingly, I actually found this apartment on Craigslist. And after I remember one day I scheduled like 5 or 6 apartment tours in the city, and I just hit all of them at the same time. And this was actually the last one, and I definitely did not have very high hopes because the landlord who listed it had taken pretty poor photos of the space, and so I had no idea that it had such big windows. I didn't know it got so much natural light. And so I really just stumbled upon it and found it for, I think, a pretty great price, especially for San Francisco. And so yeah, we signed the lease pretty quickly and decided to move in pretty shortly after. I think with the other apartments that we were touring, there were always like a few things where it's like, oh, I wish it got more natural light, or I wish it was in an area that was like a little quieter or something. But I feel like when we first stepped into this apartment, and like, I guess you'll see it in the tour, but when you first step in, it immediately opens into the big living room and the windows. And so I think just like that first gut reaction of walking into the space and seeing like all the natural light that comes through the really big windows and just how just, I guess, spacious everything felt. I feel like it was like a pretty immediate reaction of like, oh yeah, we want this one. Welcome to my entryway. It's a pretty small entryway because the whole apartment is very open plan and open concept, but I did the most with what I can with a small space. And so right here you have a pretty large window, with some storage here. I have a little disposable camera that I keep for my little weekend adventures, as well as some pictures. And then this bench right here, I usually sit down here to tie my shoes or take my shoes off, which is pretty convenient to have right at the entryway. And then you also notice I have a little paper lantern. I have a lot of paper lanterns throughout my entire home because I'm really in love with the whole sort of Japanese design concept. So lots of little lamps like that, as well as this pothos plant to bring a little bit of life to this corner. This is pretty much the only plant that'll survive in low light like this, and so I got one of those also. And then coming over to this corner right here, I've got this locker from Mustard Made. So not a super traditional shoe cabinet, but it works very well to, has sort of like an entryway area. So all the shoes are in here, a lot of storage space. And then I also have some little knickknacks on top. So a cool one I'll point out is this phone cleaner right here. So I am pretty passionate about fitness and going to the gym, but one thing I do at the gym all the time is throw my phone on the floor absolutely everywhere. And so I actually think I got mono from the gym once. And so after that little episode, I decided to buy this phone cleaner, which you put your phone in here and it sort of sucks it in and cleans off the germs with UV rays, which is pretty cool and just gives me a little bit more peace of mind that my phone's not super dirty. And then yeah, I've got a little cork box here for my keys and then a little lamp just to light the area a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the entryway. Let's go over to the living room. All right, so now we are in the living room, which is the main feature of the home. This is where I spend the most time and also probably where I put the most money and energy into decorating. You'll notice in this little corner, I have sort of a cozy little reading nook. I have another paper lamp right here. This is a Akari paper lamp, so I bought this from the Noguchi Museum. That was sort of one of my big first expensive purchases for this home. I've always been in love with those lamps, and so I finally saved up enough money to buy one of those a while ago. You'll also notice, again, a lot of plants, a lot of trees here. So I have a money tree here, which I've grown since it was just about this tall, and so it's definitely come a long way. As well as this shelf right here, I have some more plants, and then this shelf is a pretty recent installation. It's from String Design, and I wasn't really sure what to do with this blank wall for a while. I experimented with a little bit of art, but I feel like this is really great. You can see sort of some of the little objects that I love to feature in my home. So some books that I really like, some more portable lamps, some little Legos up here. I feel like I really loved playing with Legos as a kid, and so it's great that Lego sort of came out with home decor featured, or focused Legos to feature in a home. And then, yeah, a little Monstera pillow here to match the plant theme. And then right here, you might be wondering what this is. This is a piece of cat furniture, and so I do have a cat. And I get a lot of questions about how my cat does not mess up my furniture, and the answer is I buy her own furniture. And so she spends a lot of time here. She loves scratching it. She loves sitting on top of it. And yeah, I think it also looks pretty great. There's not a lot of aesthetic cat furniture on the internet, but I managed to find this one from a brand called Tuft & Paw. So very happy about this. And then I guess on the topic of cat furniture, I'll also talk about this piece right here. This is a very tall cat tree, which I bought for my cat, and she spends the most time sitting up here, sort of watching over the whole room. This sort of area I wasn't really sure what to do with for a really long time. As you can see, it's sort of the entryway area, or I guess you'd call it maybe like a foyer. But there's a closet behind for clothes and stuff, but there just always felt like this awkward space. And so I decided to fill it with this very tall cat tree sitting on top of this Monstera rug down here, which I also love. And then as you can see here, this is what I love the most about the apartment, which is this very large set of windows right here. I think these windows are around 20 or 16 feet tall, if I remember correctly. And when I first moved in here, it's like the first thing that I noticed immediately right off the bat. It's obviously brings in a lot of amazing natural light, but at the same time, I feel like almost acts as sort of a feature of the home itself. You know, I know a lot of people like to have art in their home. I don't like to feature a ton of art just because I'm pretty, I guess, minimalist or simplistic in that way. But I feel like this, with the backdrop of the brick wall in the background, almost feels like its own little art piece. And so really love that, and it's what drew me to the apartment in the first place. On this side of the wall, you'll notice I have this media stand right here, as well as this Samsung Serif TV. I spent a lot of time looking for a TV that I felt like would match the overall sort of neutral and almost like sculptural aesthetic of my living room. And so I finally found this one over Christmas, and I'm really happy with it. I think it looks more honestly like, again, like a home decor piece or a sculptural piece rather than TV, which is usually just, you know, a boring black box. And then I also have these white speakers on the side of it to sort of tie everything together. Over in this corner, I actually just picked this up this last weekend, so it's still in a pot, which is like a temporary solution. I'm getting an actual planter, don't worry. But this is a black olive tree, or it's also known as a shady lady tree. This was on my bucket list for a really long time, and I haven't found it for almost, I think, a year and a half while I was looking for it, just because they're pretty hard to come by, and the ones on the internet that you can get shipped to your house are very, very expensive. And so I finally found it from someone locally this weekend, but I think this tree you typically only really see in either, I feel like, interior designer homes or like very expensive like celebrity homes. And so I was really, really happy to pick this up, and I think It really adds to the whole sort of Zen, Japanese, Scandinavian style of the living room really well. And I also love how the light sort of diffuses through it, the small leaves, and kind of leaves nice little shadows on the wall. In this little corner right here is my cat's favorite perching spot. So she'll sit up here and watch the birds sort of fly by on the windows a lot. Obviously it gets a lot of sun as well, so she loves sunbathing here. And then right under that, we have her little pedestal, which she climbs onto the cat hammock with. So she also loves spending time on here. And again, you can see it's sort of the whole white and wood aesthetic. So again, super happy to have found cat furniture that fits in really well with the overall aesthetic of my space. Sitting down right here, I have a old vintage lamp from IKEA. I would describe my home furniture choices as sort of a mix between a bunch of different price points and a bunch of different sort of retailers. And so I don't really buy too many things from the same place. I always like to feature a lot of different designs in my home. And so this is one of the earliest things that I picked up actually back in college. And I found this on Facebook Marketplace for I think like $10. So it's funny that I bought it back then, but it's still being featured in my home now. And then this sofa right here is also a pretty recent acquisition. This is a Togo sofa from Lignée Rosé. And so this is an authentic Togo. It is probably the most pricey thing in my home. I definitely saved up a really long time for this. But yeah, I'm super happy to have it. It's obviously a very iconic design piece, which I'm sure you've seen all over the internet. And it's something that I definitely wanted to pick up for a very long time. And so very happy to have this in my home. And I think it just fits the overall space really well. And then moving on to the main sort of couch right here. This couch is pretty low to the floor, as with all my furniture. So the Togo is pretty low to the floor, this couch is pretty low to the floor. I think even though I do have very tall ceilings and I probably could get away with having higher furniture, I like my space to feel very grounded and sort of very cozy, almost like you're just hanging out on the floor or like on cushions. And so this couch is pretty low to the floor, but it definitely gets the job done and it's very cozy. We watch movies here all the time, and yeah, just a great space to kind of just chill out and relax at the end of the day. In the middle right here, you'll notice I have my coffee table. So this is a Nelson bench. Again, one of my favorite design pieces, and on top of it, I have a few little knickknacks, so like my controllers in this sort of ceramic holder. I have a book about cats because I do love cats and I have a cat. And then I also have a lot of interior or architecture-focused coffee books, like this one called Small Architecture. I have this one, which is about creating new homes from old recycled materials. And so a big fan of just, design and architecture as a whole, so I have a lot of books to reflect that. And then under here, I also have some floor cushions, which I use whenever I have guests over. Obviously, we do have a lot of seating, but in the event that we ever have 8 to 10 people over, it's always very helpful to have extra seating, and so I sort of kind of just toss them on the floor sometimes, and people can sit around the coffee table for playing like board games or something like that. So I have those, and then I also have this little blanket basket, which I just sort of keep extra throw blankets whenever we want to get cozy on the couch. Cool. And then I'll quickly talk about some of these things right here on the side of the couch. I have a lot of sort of little stools or side tables, I guess you could call them. So this one's the cork stool from Vitra. I have these 3 stackable stools from Artec. And so again, a really big fan of sort of those classic design manufacturers and designers. And then, yeah, I really love stackable stools like this because they're so multifunctional. Again, I can use them for obviously like extra seating if I want people over. I put them on the side as sort of like side tables, so I'll put my phone on there, I'll put controllers on there, and then even if you're on the couch and you sort of want to kick your feet up, you can sort of put it there and do that as well. And so yeah, definitely a big fan of these sort of multifunctional pieces of furniture. And then coming around to this corner over here, you'll notice, I mentioned earlier, I don't have a lot of art in my apartment, but the very few pieces of art that I do have are almost exclusively all from my sister. So my sister, I feel like, is really someone who's influenced me a lot in terms of my interest in design as a whole. So she works as a fashion designer in Los Angeles as well as an independent artist. And so this is one of her pieces right here. She makes very sort of eclectic and complicated collage type multimedia paintings, and so this is one of the smaller pieces that I have featured in the living room. And then In this corner, again, I have another sort of like side table, I guess you could say, with some interesting pottery inside, as well as some more books about design. And then on top I have, you know, just some little vases with a lot of flowers. Again, I love to feature a lot of, even though I don't have like an outdoor area of my home, I try to want to really bring in the outdoors inside of my home. And so a lot of flowers and a lot of plants, like you can see right here, this very large bird of paradise. This is one of the first plants that I bought for the apartment. And I think I got it when it was around like a little bit shorter than me, so maybe like 5.5 feet tall. And I think this largest leaf right here is now probably, I don't know, over 7 or 8 feet tall. And so that's really also grown a lot here. And then right here, I have this, again, vintage IKEA shelf. This is fully modular, and so you'll notice that these panels can all come out, which I think is super helpful. You'll notice that I took off the panels on the side to sort of let the plants grow through it, which I think is very unique. I believe this is a piece from 2013, I think. And again, I found this on Facebook Marketplace, which is where I source a lot of my sort of older pieces that are no longer in production. And again, yeah, just a bunch of little knickknacks and things that sort of bring personality to the space. I have some boxes for storage in the bottom. I have a lot of plants. I have more coffee table books. Again, got a bunch of Legos because I am a really big fan of Legos, and I always want to sort of bring a more playful sort of aspect to my home whenever I can, and so I have those Legos right here. This right here is a very iconic lamp. This is a Louis Poulsen lamp, and so this is the Penthella lamp specifically, and so again, this is what was on my list for a really long time, and I think is sort of started the movement of this whole mushroom-shaped lamps that you see a lot nowadays, and so super happy to have this. And then this standing lamp right here is also from Louis Poulsen, which is, yeah, one of my favorite lighting companies. So I think I first started getting plants in college, and back then I killed a lot of them, I'm not gonna lie. I think I probably experimented with maybe like 5 to 10 plants throughout the few years, and I killed basically all of them. But I realized it was probably because my college dorms had very poor lighting, and so I tried not to take it too much to heart, and so gave it a second shot when I got to this apartment, and luckily, as you can probably see, they've been doing pretty well. I can't take too much credit for it. Obviously, I get a lot of amazing natural light, so that's where I think most of the credit is due. But yeah, I think plants are, especially because they work so well in this space, I think just are a great way to add liveliness to any home, and I think is definitely something that I talk a lot about on my content as well. I would describe my personal interior style as sort of a mix between Japanese and Scandinavian design. I think people use the term like Japandi. So I think because I was talking earlier about how I wanted space to feel very cozy and like very zen, I definitely gravitate towards a very natural both material palette and color palette. And so you'll see a lot of like wood, a lot of like cream and sort of lighter beige tones. But then at the same time, I also wanted to avoid what people call like the sad beige aesthetic. And so avoiding everything having be the exact same tone. And so I also have like little like pops of color throughout with little pieces of decor. You'll also notice I have a lot of plants to bring sort of like life and liveliness to the space. But yeah, overall just kind of adhering to those principles of natural materials and just very neutral colors. I think a really big part of putting your personal stamp on a space is, for me, it was actually like living in the space, right? So when I first moved in here, the apartment looked pretty much like nothing like it looks like right now. And so I think I'd say like a common mistake that I see people making a lot of the time when they're decorating their homes is they'll like move in and then immediately buy like all of their furniture in sets, or like they'll decorate everything very quickly. And so for me, it was really a process of actually spending time in here. And so luckily I did move in June, and I didn't start my job until September. So I had a lot of time to just like sit around and actually like live in the space and see how I feel about it, what I felt like could be changed, and what things I wanted to like improve, or like pieces that I wanted to find. And so I feel like I really put my own personal stamp on it, both with those like little pops of color, or like just like things I use. For example, like I have a cat, and so I have a coffee table book about cats. So just things like little personality flares. And then yeah, I think in addition to that, just like the process of actually living in a space really makes me realize sort of what I wanted with it, and then also let me play with the different styles that I wanted to experiment with. So that's the living room. Now move on to the dining area over here, and you can say hi to my cat right here, or she'll run away. So this obviously is not the biggest dining area in the world, and so you'll notice I've done things to sort of make the most of the space that I can. Obviously, this dining table is pretty small. I think it's around 28 inches across, and so we only have 3 chairs here. And so, yeah, I think also because this area doesn't get as much natural light as the living room, obviously the living room kind of went with more like white and lighter wood and beige tones. This entire corner I've really made a little bit more darker, and so the rug is darker. You'll notice I have these black leather dining chairs, and the wood palette also is more of a walnut finish as opposed to a lighter like oak finish or like an ash finish. And so yeah, I have this dining table right here, have these little coasters, and this portable lamp right here. And then again, flowers, which I like to change out. These ones are starting to go on their way out, and so we'll probably have to get new flowers pretty soon. You'll notice on the window right here also I have this little bird feeder installed. This is one of my cat's favorite activities. I think because we live in a city, obviously I don't have a yard, and so she doesn't really have a ton of opportunities to go outside and play. But what I do for her is I set up this bird feeder with bird food, and so she sort of just sits here all day and just watches the birds come by, eat the food. And yeah, I think we've honestly single-handedly probably fed an entire colony of birds, because when I first moved in here, there were only a few of them, and now there are a lot of them, and they also got a lot bigger. So I will take some credit there. In this corner here, I have this, again, sort of this console or this stand with, again, some design books, as well as this ponytail palm plant. And this mirror. I think whenever I'm sort of designing a space, I'm always thinking about what the best way is to make it feel bigger, or the best way to make it feel like it's more sort of like light. And so I think mirrors in general are a really great way to bring more natural light to an otherwise pretty dark corner. And so this mirror kind of reflects a lot of the light that comes in from the living room and sort of makes this area feel a little bit more lively and bright than it actually is. And then I have these 3 bar stools right here, which we honestly use probably more than the actual dining table. I feel like I'm a very casual person. I honestly don't really like set up for like a real dinner very frequently. So a lot of the times me and my housemate or my girlfriend would just be hanging out here. We'll be cooking dinner and talking and sort of just sitting on these bar stools while we're doing that. And then the last thing I'll talk about for the dining area is this little coffee setup that I have. I am actually not a very big drinker of coffee, and so when I moved into this apartment, I just invested in like an espresso, and so on mornings that I really wasn't feeling it or I didn't get a great night of sleep, I'll just make a cup of coffee using the Nespresso machine. And then inside of here, this is a cabinet from Castlery, and so I love sort of like the wooden slats to give you a little peek of what's inside, and so this is where I keep sort of like my nicer plates and cups and stuff like that for whenever we have like dinner parties. So yeah, that's pretty much it here. And then again, up here, I have another one of my sister's art pieces. This is a bit of a smaller one, but I think, yeah, the darker sort of hues of this definitely fits the overall theme of the dining area very well. I'm a content creator, so I spend a lot of time on social media. But I think especially in like the last 2 or 3 years, especially when I've sort of started doing home decor or interior focused content, there are like so many amazing other content creators that either do like, for example, like home renovation projects, they do like content focused on furniture or focused on design. And so I'd say I draw a lot of inspiration from seeing other people's homes on the internet and really kind of curating a bunch of sort of inspirations from that way, and then deciding sort of what are specific pieces or what are specific features of this space that I like a lot that I want to incorporate into my space. And then it's a process of like, you know, playing around with the layout and stuff like that. I'd say I probably change like little things throughout my home, honestly, all the time. And so it never really looks the same for more than a few months. So yeah, immediate answer for what my favorite thing about the home is probably the windows. I think it's the first thing that sort of like strikes you when you walk into the apartment. And I think it plays a really big role in providing a lot of natural light. I think at the same time, it's been a little bit controversial, especially online, because my windows do face a brick wall, and so I don't exactly have a view, which I think is what a lot of people think of when they have windows. But for me, the brick wall actually is, number one, it adds a lot of privacy, but then number two, it sort of acts as its own little accent piece in the apartment. I feel like you don't really see exposed brick in apartments in San Francisco. I feel like it's much more of like an East Coast, like a New York or a Boston thing. And so for me, yeah, I would say it's the combination of both the windows as well as the sort of brick wall that it faces. Now we can move into the kitchen. I'll start with the shelf here. The kitchen also, I think, compared to the rest of the apartment, isn't the biggest in the world. And so I put this shelf here actually to sort of divide off that entryway area, which you can kind of see through it. And also just add more storage for things in my kitchen. So you'll notice I have like more plates and stuff. I have this little water carbonator right here, which I don't use too frequently, but if you wanted to make carbonated water, you put water in here and then plug it in, and then it makes carbonated water for you, as well as just a kettle. And then again, I have this Lego piece right here to add a little bit of color and just sort of playfulness to the entire thing. And then yeah, some more plants along the top to bring some greenery. And then this is one of my favorite plants. I actually don't know what this is called exactly, but it sort of looks like a miniature Monstera vine plant. And so yeah, I think with these concrete pillars, I wasn't really sure what to do with them for a while, but I think plants are sort of a great way to fill up vertical space, especially vines like this. And so this is Mao, which is actually cat in Chinese. So I'm fully Chinese American, and so I had a little playful name for her. She's great. I think a lot of people question how I sort of have a cat in my home. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I get a lot of cat furniture for her, but she's also just an amazing cat, and she doesn't like bite any of my plants, actually. Not all of these plants are necessarily cat safe, but I guess maybe since I've gotten her for a very young age, we've just never had issues with her playing with the plants. And so she definitely brings a lot of liveliness and character to the home with her presence. The kitchen area isn't, I think, my favorite area of the home, I will say. I spend a lot of time here because I do actually love cooking at home. When I first moved to the city, one of my goals was to only order takeout at maximum twice a week. And so I slip up every once in a while, but for the most part, I try to cook pretty much all of my meals. And so a lot of chopping, a lot of cooking happens on top of this countertop. And then, yeah, we have a pretty basic electric conduction stove over here. Nothing too crazy. And then I also have this this bath towel from Marimekko, which is one of my favorite sort of like textile brands. And then one thing I will show is I love to have a lot of sort of things in your home that you usually wouldn't think twice about, but investing more time and energy into finding really like alternatives that are not just as basic as they seem. So obviously this seems like just a paper towel holder, but the middle actually comes out and you can see there's cleaning solution in here. And so it sort of doubles as a little cleaning solution and then makes the process of cleaning a lot more efficient. So that's something kind of cool that I have. And then I also have this automatic sensor trash can, which I use as well. Again, you can see everything's sort of pretty matchy-matchy. I think there's a few things like my blue air fryer or the blue carbonator that I have, but for the most part, I wanted to keep sort of the palette for the kitchen as well pretty natural and just matching the sort of white beige tones that are already going on. I think the one way in which I did want to make the kitchen a little more interesting was with these pothos vines. I feel like there wasn't a great way for me to add a lot of green or like plants into the kitchen just because it's a pretty dark corner and obviously I can't like put plants next to the area that I'm cooking or they're gonna get like fried in the heat. And so I do have these pothos vines that are hanging down from sort of the cabinets at the top, which admittedly are not the most practical because if you're sitting at the bar seating, sometimes you're gonna be eating food in front of a plant. But I think for the most part, I love the way that they look and just bring a little bit more liveliness to the otherwise relatively boring kitchen, I feel like. My advice for people finding their own personal style and really sticking to it is honestly just, again, to like really live in your space and feel out what you like about it and things you don't like about it, draw inspirations from a lot of different places. And then at the end of the day, you know, if you like something that a lot of other people like that's totally fine. I feel like there's no reason to be unique for the sake of being unique. I think at the end of the day, your space is obviously somewhere that you live, right? It's not where other people live. And so even if it's not something that a lot of people love, I'd say if it makes you happy, then it should be okay. And I think that's definitely a pressure that I've seen through my content creation. I think obviously my space tends to be, I think compared to other homes on the internet that you see that are maybe a little bit more eclectic or a little bit more colorful or have more sort of like pops, it's definitely on the more neutral side. And there are some people that love that, and there are some people who think it's very boring. But I think for me, it's, you know, it ultimately comes down to the fact that I love this space and it's something that I really enjoy. And so, yeah, I'd say don't think about it too much and just kind of anchor on your own feelings. I think what really gives a home soul is the way that you live in it and not necessarily the way that it looks. And I think what I mean by that is, for example, in my content, I show a lot of different videos of like the various ways in which I use my space. And so I think what really brings life to it is like things like my cat here. I have my cat, I have my girlfriend who visits me every weekend, and then obviously I have myself. And so living in this space and sort of interacting with all the various parts of it, and especially I think a really big thing for me has always been this idea of like function over form. Obviously, I try to make my apartment very aesthetic and I try to pay attention to the little details. But at the end of the day, what I think about the most is how I'm actually going to use that space, right? Is it a couch that I'm actually going to use? Is it, I don't know, like a side table that I'm actually going to put things on? And so I think like thinking about the functionality and how you actually interact with the space is really what brings it to life, rather than just buying things for the sake of it looking good or for the sake of it like following a certain trend. All right, so heading up to the second floor, I think it's pretty rare to have stairs in an apartment in San Francisco, and so we were definitely super happy to find a lofted apartment that has a second floor to make it sort of separate the zones. The only thing I really have in this stairwell is this very large piece from my sister, and so you can see maybe a little bit more in detail about sort of the style of her art. She does a mix of sort of multimedia, and then afterwards when she actually prints it on the canvas, she'll actually paint over some things with hand. And so yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite pieces from her, and I think fits this stairwell really, really well. And then heading upstairs, this is my bedroom. So this bedroom is connected to the loft overhead. So you can see it doesn't actually technically have its own window. It sort of shares the really big window with the lofted living room. But yeah, my bedroom I absolutely love. It's where I obviously sleep, and I sleep a lot because I very much value my sleep. The bed right here, this is a Thuma bed, which if you don't know is a joy to put together. It has absolutely 0 screws, and so it's all joined by Japanese joinery. So I absolutely love my bed. I have these linen sheets on top. I'm not a big fan of sort of what you normally see with bed sheets, which is sort of those satin finish shiny sheets. I really love linen sheets because number one, they actually get softer with use over time. And so they weren't the most comfortable when I first got them, but now after using them for a while, they're super, super soft, and they'll only get softer over time. I also love sort of just the earthy and almost like wrinkled look of it. I think some people think it looks a little bit messy. I just think it makes it seem like it has a lot more character and just, I don't know, it just feels a lot more textured. And yeah, also notice I keep the palette for my bedroom relatively neutral as well as with, and then use sort of like the art for little pops of color. And then so yeah, this is another one of my sister's art pieces. Pretty similar to the one that was in the living room downstairs, but I have this one in a white frame instead to sort of match the bedroom a little bit better. Hanging on this sort of wall shelf, and then on either side I have these sconces attached to the wall, which I use for my night lights, and then just a pretty basic nightstand on that side. On the other side over here, I have this componibili storage unit from Cartel. And so this is actually much more functional than it looks. It has a lot of storage inside those 3 things, and I think really makes for a very great bedside table. On this side, I have this sort of bookshelf wall divider situation going on. This space for me was always something I wasn't sure how to work with in my bedroom, because if there wasn't anything here, it felt like there was a little bit too much space where the closet was. And so what I decided to do was basically combine this tall bookshelf vertically and then this room divider from Artec as well. To sort of create this zoned living situation. And so I have my bed on this side of the room divider. And then on the other side of the room divider, I have basically where I change. And so this is my closet space. I have a mirror here to check out my outfit before I head out. And yeah, I think just makes the room feel a little bit more functional, and also in a weird way seems like a little bit bigger than it actually is, even though it is obviously just one bedroom. And then a lot of people, whenever I bring people over for the first time, I always get questions about why there is a chair here, because it seems very random. I found these chairs. These are Herman Miller dining chairs, which obviously are pretty pricey. I found them on a great price for Facebook Marketplace, and so I wanted to find some way to feature it in my home. And so I have one right here actually, just so in the mornings when I'm putting on my socks, I just sit here and put my socks on. It just makes life a little bit more easier, and just, you know, puts to use the dining chair that I already had. And then on this wall, this actually wasn't here when I moved in. I installed these wooden acoustic slat panels. Again, I think just the wall didn't have a lot going on, and so I didn't know what to do with it and wanted to add a little bit more texture and character. And so I bought these panels, which help a little bit actually with the noise dampening. Since I do content, obviously I have to record my voice a lot, and so this helps a little bit with the noise isolation, and then I think just looks really great as well with the vertical slats running along it. And then I have this TV mounted, which actually swivels out if I ever want to watch TV in bed. So that's very helpful. And then yeah, another one of my sister's art pieces at the bottom here, just to feature her amazing pieces as well. And then one quick thing I didn't talk about, this is another Nelson bench. I absolutely love Nelson benches, so this is the second one that I have here. I sometimes sit here, honestly, it's more just as a decorative piece. I have a plant on top of here, as well as another rice paper lamp right here. And so yeah, I think just another great piece to add sort of texture with the sort of like vertical wooden slats. And then over here is my desk setup. So again, because I do content, I'm a content creator, I spend a lot of time at home at my desk or at my laptop, either editing videos or working with brands over email and things like that. And so desk setup was always very important to me. And so this is actually a sit-stand desk, and so I can raise it up if I want to. I can put it down as well. And so I have this desk here, which I work at a lot. And then a very large monitor. This is a 34-inch ultra-wide monitor, and so it's very nice to multitask and have a lot of space on my desktop to do work. Right here, I have another lighting fixture from Louis Poulsen. So this is a wall lamp. And so you can see this is the primary lamp that I use whenever I'm working at my desk at night. Very helpful, and it's nice that it sort of swivels and also goes lower and higher based on whether I'm working sitting or I'm working standing up. I have another art piece up here. This one's not from my sister. It's probably the only piece of art that I have that's not from her. But I have a few little knickknacks there. And then yeah, I think overall you'll see my desk setup is pretty minimal. I don't like having a lot of clutter on my desk because it makes my mind feel cluttered. And so I like to keep it pretty much entirely blank with just the bare minimum essentials that you really need. And so yeah, that's sort of how I like to work and keep myself productive. And then the chair, I think office chairs are very, very important. This is a desk chair called the Fern from Hayworth. This has absolutely saved my lower back. It actually has like lumbar support that's adjustable, and so I have always had lower back issues, probably because I spent too much time hunched over my desk in college, but this is definitely a really big lifesaver and sort of saves my posture a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty much the desk setup. I guess the last thing I'll talk about in the bedroom is actually these plants right here. I think a lot of people like to feature plants in their living rooms, but I also love to have plants in my bedrooms. And I've gotten a few people asking me whether that's technically bad for you, because I know at night plants produce carbon dioxide. I'm like 99% sure that's not an issue. I think you'd have to have pretty much an entire forest in your bedroom in order to have impacts on the actual carbon levels in your apartment. But yeah, I love having these here. Again, they sort of hang from the ceilings and capture the natural light from the loft down below. So yeah, that's another way that I like to add greenery to my bedroom. And then like I mentioned, the living room is right below, and so you can see it's a great view to have to wake up to every morning. I absolutely love waking up here. I've been living here for 2 years, and there isn't a morning when I wake up and sort of open the blinds and look at this view and get tired of it. And so yeah, I am just super, super grateful that this is the view that I wake up to every morning. I think to me, home means somewhere where you truly feel at peace. I think, like a home can look really great, or for example, like I have a lot of comments or people telling me like, oh, your apartment is so clean all the time. Like it's not like, it feels like very staged or it feels like very fake. But that's like just sort of me. I like to keep my space very clean. That's just how I like to live. And so I think home to me really means being true to yourself and creating a space that you feel completely comfortable in and that you feel is really inviting and somewhere where you want to come back to every day and just relax and unwind and just really not have any other thoughts in your mind.
Welcome, Homeworthy. Why don't you come into my New York City loft and let me show you around. Hi, my name is Vincent Wolf and I'm an interior designer. So a lot of people ask me how I got into interior design, and it was just, I had tried so many different careers, and none of them really worked out. I'm dyslexic, so I had to fit into the right situation, and that worked out very well. It was close to 50 years ago that I started, and it was, it's just like ducked water. I was looking for a space to live. I knew a few things. I wanted to be in a loft. I wanted sun. I wanted views. Not about big Central Park South views, but not a building 20 feet away. And I started to look in the Flatiron area, in all different areas. But the cost, I was renting, and the cost was really quite, at the time for me, astronomical. And I started to look here in Hill's Kitchen, and I came up to this apartment. It used to be at the time a photographer's studio. The windows were so dirty that you really couldn't see out. The whole place was painted Kelly green. And it was really, really dirty. But as this is what I do for a living, I can see past those things. And I thought, this is perfect. And I took it. And it was in 1988. So you can see I've stuck to it. And to me, it's to see the sun coming through those windows. I love plants, and all the people, they're people to me, really do great. And it's a wonderful space. And like 4 buildings away is my office. So not a long commute, and near the river. You know, who could ask for more? I was 15 years old. In 61, we went from, I left Cuba with my cousin on it wasn't a fishing boat, it was somebody's private boat, but it wasn't a rowboat, it was, you know, there were cabins and things like that. And we went to Miami. My father had already left Cuba, and then my mother left like a year later, because she was trying, her mother was there and she wanted to stay with her. As refugees, and it's happening in Ukraine, it's happening in so many places now in the world, I mean, you have to leave your home and you go into a situation where whatever it was you were doing before doesn't exist. He was a successful businessman, and when I got to Miami, he was cooking hamburgers in the Burger King. My mother came, she was mopping floors in the building where we lived. He came to New York, they separated, and I came to visit. And the first time I walked on Madison Avenue and I looked at the buildings, I said, this is where I want to be. I mean, it was an immediate connection. You know, the museums, the art, the fashion. It was just the excitement compared to being in Miami in the 60s, which was a very depressed period, was really what made me stay in New York. The main part of this apartment is this room. With amazing light that comes in through the windows. But the important thing for me in this room is the photography. I've been collecting for the last, I would say, 40, 45 years. And some of them are photographs that I've had for a long time. Some like the Moncasi over here, or Bernice Abbott, are images that I have had for a long time and are very important to me. I love picture legends, and I've been doing that for a long time, and I think it's great for a collector because you're able to move things around. If I get a new piece, I can take this one away and put this one in. And so you can see, you just space them at the right distance, and then you're able to put all different sizes of pieces, from small, rectangular, to very large. You know, it's a mixture. This apartment has things that I've lived with for a long time and other things that have just come in. The bench I've had for a long time. It was a piece that I reproduced for a company called Henriton in my collection of furniture. There are just a lot of different things from a lot of different places. I travel a lot, so to me, whether it's this bed from Borneo to the table that I bought in Italy, you'll see around the apartment toys. I have a cat. He will come out pretty soon. The painting that was given to me as a gift is a great pop of color. Here's a totally white, neutral environment, but the fact that this color just jumps out of the wall gives the room a totally different personality. Lantana, I've had her for a while. I've collected through the years fragments of Buddhas that I have bought in my travel through Southeast Asia. And they all are the lower part of the Buddha, the hands and the crossed legs. And I've had them in all different types. Here are the hands, here's another torso. And I've just, each time I'm traveling, which I do once a year in Southeast Asia, that's one of the things, whenever I see one, I buy. The city looks great. Over here outside, you see all these new buildings that have gone up. So at night, it's a great place to, I have a terrace to dine in the terrace and, you know, with the New York City skyline. Let me show you my exercise, guest room, TV room, which is over here. And instead of a door, what I've done is I did a curtain. So the curtain goes across, and when I have guests, that's what I do, close it, and they have privacy. If not, it just stays open. Statue is from the 1930s, and I bought it at auction in Paris. I have a few nudes throughout the apartment. I love the fact of the scale of it, and I love sculpture from that period. The female torsos that were done have such movement to them and really beautiful grace. In this room, here's another nude. The pills are from Damien Hirsch, and it was a series that he did, oh my God, like around 15, 18 years ago. Again, this is a upholstered mattress that when I have a guest, this becomes a bed. I exercise over here, books on photography. Again, more ledges with photography. These are at J, which, you know, I loved his work. It was at the turn of the century in France. I'm a trustee for God's Love We Deliver. And every year, God's Love has a special event. And whoever contributes gets a big diamond. So you can see I've been contributing for a few years. It's a great institution. They feed close to 2 million meals a year. If you're sick, if you're unable, they feed you, bring you food to your home. They follow you the diet that you have to eat, whether you, if you're sick, and if you have a child, the child is fed as well. It's really an amazing, not a charity, but a goodwill situation. I like the juxtaposition of the picture to the chair, the artist, Michel Brechner. I like, in compositions, I always like a high, a medium, and a low. And this does it very well. It's high, medium, low, lower. In fact, it became the back cover of my book with the cat coming in. So I love the tonalities. I would say that chair, but I love that chair, and I bought this in Ethiopia. What they are is they all have a meaning. They all have a memory. And they're all being selected through my aesthetic. So it's not that it's Aunt Lucy's horrible vase because it's there because Aunt Lucy left it to you when she died. These are all things that, to me, I bought it because I loved it, and I still do. So I've been working on this book for the last 3 years. It's been a labor of love. It was written by Margaret Russell, who used to be the editor-in-chief of Architectural Digest and Elle Decor. And it talks about different types of jobs and what I brought to create what the client was looking for. And there are lessons learned in each job. So there are things, a section in each story about what I learned, whether how to run a wood floor, how to deal with particular colors, which I think is very instructive to the readers. As well, it talks about how I began in the history of my work from when I first started doing interior design. I have no formal education in design, or really, I never graduated high school. So all of my life is very instinctual. I design as what comes out. I always joke that there are two people inside. There's the Cuban refugee that can't believe that I am where I am, and then there's a designer that's very much in control of the situation. I think that my background, affects how I deal with light, about plants, because it's, I grew up in the Caribbean, so it was very green. And the sense of irrelevance, that really has helped me as it pertains to mixing things and a lack of formality. And as I said, a sense of humor. I mean, not a chuckle, but just sort of, you look at things and there's something quirky about it. People ask me, wow, not how did you end up being a designer, but with no formal education and no training. But I think living in New York, it's a city that if you have talent, if you have something to bring to the table, you succeed. And I think that was really the gift that I got from a higher power, is to have come to New York, because it allowed me to be who I am, not pretend to be anything but who I am, and not be homeless because being dyslexic, I can't spell, I have no memory. I have a lot of shortcomings that in the business world would not have helped me very much. So I was lucky. Again, I said, being in the right place at the right time. I think if a higher power puts that in your way, is the biggest gift you can get. As I said, I moved in here in '88. A few years later, I bought this apartment, which is this main room, that room that we were just at, and then the kitchen. A few years later, the apartment next door became available. So I bought that and put it together. This present apartment came to this wall over here, And from there on is the second apartment. As you can see, there are no window treatments. I don't want to stop any light from coming in. And only 4 years ago, these buildings went in across the street. So I had full privacy and I got accustomed to no window treatments. This is the library. It's a library, it's a dining room, it's where I keep the plants. It's a gallery. As you can see, every photograph in here has to do with hands. Among the collections that I have are these shells which are used in Buddhist ceremonies during the process of reading the scriptures. It's a horn, this is what it is, you blow in here, a horn, a dagger, and a bell. And those are, as you're reading, different things happen. So I've been collecting these for many years. The dining table is by Jansan, and it was done in the 60s. It opens up and it gets 2 leaves. So you're able to sit a lot of people. The first time I saw this table, I was in Paris in the early 70s. And I was in somebody's apartment and they had the table and I thought, wow, isn't that an amazing table? So when I was able to buy one, I did. People say, my God, so many chairs. And a lot of them have come through different reasons. You know, a set of 4 chairs had to be bought only to use 3 in a job, and I bought the 4th one. Chairs that I bought in my travels. Chairs that I've designed like this one. So you can see here all the books. And when I bought the second apartment, this used to be a bedroom, that was the living room, and on the other side of this wall was the kitchen and bathroom. But there were no windows. So as you see here, there's glass, which I'll show you from the other side. I did frosted glass across the whole wall, so natural light enters the bathroom. So like this, when you're in there, you have the sense that there is a window. The photograph over here is by Richard Avedon, and it's Stravinsky, the composer. And what's amazing is how within the triptych, how he looks just sort of not present, and as it proceeds, he comes alive. You know, I've always loved his music, and so when Dick did the show, I bought this photograph. When you collect, you're a caretaker. You're going to hold on to these things for a period of time, and then they pass on to somebody else. I mean, whatever is here is because I love it, because if not, why have it? So I don't know. I can tell you my favorite plants, my favorite photographs, my favorite chair, but I love them all. And it's interesting, maybe it's because of the light, of the openness, but I look at almost every object in this place every day. You know, as I'm walking through here, I look at the photographs. In the living room, I do the same thing. When I'm exercising, I look at the objects. I think to have things in your home that don't mean anything, whether you believe it after looking at the space, I'm a minimalist thinker. I like modern environments, even if almost everything in here is old, but the space is still contemporary. If it doesn't mean anything, why have it? Less is more. The majority of the work that I do for clients is alterations, demolition, renovating spaces. When I moved in here, what appealed to me, besides the sun and the view, was the industrial quality to it. So I didn't want to touch that. I felt that I think lofts should be approached with what they are and not trying to make them anything more than what they are. So the sprinkler systems, the radiators, the concrete floors, all these things stayed as they were. There was certainly, when I bought the second apartment, there were certain things that were done. What used to be a bedroom is now a gym, and so I opened that up, created the library. When I got the second apartment, put in a bathroom. But basically, the essence of what the space is really has not changed. I didn't try to make it what it wasn't. Let me show you the bedroom. For privacy, I installed a large-scale door that slides across and closes off this room. So behind the wall, the door, is another television. So at night, I close it and I watch television. Again, more chairs, everywhere chairs. My plants, more photography. These are my favorite photographs. Steichen, Weston, images that to me represent the strength of photography. And the bed, I love beds. I love laying in bed and reading. I just started reading this great book on Karl Lagerfeld, which it's an amazing book. Again, you can see nothing is formula. There's no formulas here. There's no sort of like, well, you have a bed and you need a night table. It's all sort of things in a very loose way, which I think it goes with what a loft should be. It's not an apartment. It's, an industrial space. So I like the looseness on it. This is like 50 years of collecting. Photography, I stopped collecting like 8 years ago. 9 years ago. If you can't show it, then why buy it? And I started to collect drawings, paintings. I think you reach a stage in your life that you think, why keep adding? You should be subtracting. And I have so much stuff here to subtract from that I just didn't need to add anymore. Really, the only things that I buy are in my travels. I like to buy a small object when I travel from each place. I was just in Hawaii, and in Montauk, I have a collection of dolphins that I've bought from different parts of the world, the wood-carved dolphins. So I write where I bought it and at what date. But besides that, really, plants is the only thing that gets added here. It's a great desk which I bought in Indonesia. The top is all one solid piece of wood. The painting I bought in Australia, it's an interesting artist because all he does is he paints himself in different outfits. So here he is on both sides of the mattress. The skull I bought in France, this artist that creates all these iron skeletons. And here is my dressing room. And instead of doors, again, I use curtains. I wanted the sense of softness in the space. And beyond is the bathroom. You can see here the glass, frosted glass, how the light comes through it. So you're not in a bathroom inside of a cave. You're still connected to the outside. I used an old table from Java in Indonesia, and I mounted a sink on it, which again, it follows through on the thinking of the space, which is yin and yang, different objects, different ideas put together. And at the other side of this wall, is my shower. And in the niche, I have a jolly, which is what in India is called a window. And it's one piece of marble carved with frosted lighting behind. And now you've walked through my whole apartment. People ask me what was the theory behind what this apartment has become. And the reality is, which is, when you're working for a client, you have to come up with a concept. It has to be very clear. It has to be very precise. In this space, there are two things that really ran the show: the plans and the photography. The rest are all things that come in and go out. Certain pieces I've had for a long time, but other ones just sort of keep evolving. I travel a great deal, so there are things in here from the bed, which came from Borneo, to a chair from Paris, or something from Africa, or from Ethiopia. They all come in. They're pieces that I find, I love. They come in, live with them for a while, and then they go on to a different home. So it's all how to, because I speak the language of mixing. Certainly for myself, I know how to juxtaposition things. So it doesn't have to follow a theory. It's what looks right with each other. We live such a race life in New York. The house I have at the beach is on the ocean. And to this day, and I've had that house since '84, I look at it and I can't still believe that all the gifts that I've gotten by just being decently good at what I do. And I think only in this country. I mean, if you were in Europe, it's what's your background, who do you know? South America or, Southeast Asia, where were you in society? In New York, if you have some talent, personality, looks, the door opens. And only if you destroy it or mess it up, you have a high chance of succeeding. As I said, I've been here since 1988. So would I consider this my home? Not really. This is where I take care of the plants, go to sleep, get up, go to work, exercise. My home is the house I have in Montauk. And it's my home because the garden is outside. It's my private space. This is very much a public space. Here you are in my home right now, and there are people that come here through business, charities, guests. So it's where I live, but I wouldn't call it my home. I would call it where I live.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.